Alright, I want to quickly summarize this video, and this summary should be fairly quicker than the last one. The Centauri carbon is now working again. How did I get the carbon to work again? Well, I went and I plugged in the original USB-C cable to both the hot end side and the motherboard end side. Now, when I did that, it booted up completely fine. And it did allow me to print for a little while. It allowed me to get this much printed. This right here is what I was trying to print, a piece of Crazy Mita's hair. As you can see, there's quite a bit left when the Centauri carbon failed. So when it failed, I unplugged the original USB-C cable from the Centauri, from the hot end and the main board again. And then I took, not this cable, but the other one initially, put it back in there, fired up, turned on completely fine. And then I noticed it turned on completely fine. Then I took this cable, plugged it into the main board, plugged it into the hot end, turned it on, turned on completely fine, turned it off, rerouted the cabling to the way I initially had it, turned it back on again, turned on completely fine. And then I was able to print this part off again, which again failed initially. And it took about 3.5 hours to print this piece. Then I printed off the speed benchy already installed on the Centauri carbon. So it's clearly working for the moment. I don't know what I did, but it seems like this USB-C cable is kind of like a soft reset for both the main board and the hot end to start communicating properly again. Even though it really shouldn't work that way, but apparently it did. So now I don't know what to do, because the first video uploaded, I couldn't get this goddamn thing to work at all. And yet, simply just reconnecting the original USB-C cable gets it working again? Even though it makes absolutely no fucking sense. And as you saw in the previous video, I replaced the little PCB on the back of the hot end and the hot end itself, and it didn't work. And yet now, again, it's working completely fine. So what I'm going to be doing now is I'm going to be treating my Centauri carbon like I do with my Neptune 4 Max. What I mean by that, when I'm done using my Neptune 4 Max for today, I turn it off. I don't have to do that, but I do that with the Neptune 4 Max. I'm going to start doing that with the Centauri carbon. And the only reason why I'm going to be doing that is because I let this thing sit for a few days, powered on, doing nothing. And something along those a couple of days of it just sitting doing nothing, something broke on it, and it stopped it from functioning properly. Again, do I know what stopped it from working? No. I just know now that theoretically just powering it off when I'm done for today is hopefully what I need to start doing. It's a little annoying, but hey, if it maintains this thing and keeps it working, then so be it. So yeah. So to the person over at Elegoo, I honestly don't know what to do at this point. You're probably going to send me a main board. I don't even know if that will work. I would rather just be sent a whole new Centauri carbon and then just put this thing in my closet and just have it collect dust. Because, well, this one clearly is not working right. I made a bit of an oopsie when I initially recorded the video on my Centauri carbon being broken. It's still broken, as you can tell, but I just remember that the original USB-C cable that came with the printer for the print head and the main board, it's actually still in the printer itself. I didn't remove it. I just completely forgot that I actually still have it in the printer. I just moved it out of the way. It's actually, I believe, yeah, it's like right there. So I just need to pull it back out and plug it into the hot end and see if it does anything. Or, well, hot end and main board. Again, I doubt it does anything because I know it's not the cable. But who knows? If I'm proven wrong, I'm proven wrong. Alright, there is the original USB-C cable for the Centauri carbon. Both plugged into the main board and the hot end. Again, I doubt anything's going to change because I know this cable is bad. And I'll also mention it again, When I initially messaged Elegoo to try and resolve my issue with my printer, they sent me a new hot end board, the little back piece board right here, and a new hot end itself. They did not send me a new cable. They did not send me a new main board. What fixed my Centauri Carbon up until recently was replacing the original USB-C cable with a third party, again from Elegoo, or not Elegoo, but from Anchor and whatnot. And again, this cable from Anchor was the first one I tried to fix with my Centauri Carbon. And again, this cable here actually fixed the issue I was having originally with my Centauri Carbon. Again, more or less proving that the issue at that time was in fact the USB-C cable. I then upgraded that USB-C cable to this one right here that can handle about 200 and something watts of draw and whatnot. Now I don't know what the actual draw weight of the hot end of this thing is, but it's better be safe than sorry. And of course, this cable also worked completely fine. Again, proving that this cable here was in fact the problem of why I was initially having these issues. Now, why I'm having this issue is beyond me. Again, I am thinking something on the main board died. Why did I think something on the main board died? Well, the main board cooling fan, the ball bearing was going bad. Now, I don't see how the ball bearing and the main cooling fan going bad can correlate to a connection issue between the main board and the hot end, but who knows, maybe the main board fan finally died and it short-circuited in some way to where it fries the little controller for the main board and the tool end to communicate properly. Do I know if that's the case? No, because I'm not an engineer. I don't know how this board is designed. I'm just shooting out my mouth to see if maybe something works, or just say what I think is wrong. So with that said, let's turn this thing on again. Again, this time with the original USB-C cable installed and all set up again. Again, I highly doubt this is going to resolve the issue. And of course, again, the replacement PCB and the replacement hot end. That's as far as I can go because I have nothing else to work with. Okay, well, it turned on okay, so I'm guessing this cable did die? I mean, it's possible. But again, I'm probably going to end up running into the exact same issue again, where this cable eventually shits the bed on me and breaks. Again, I don't know what's wrong with this carbon. So what I'm going to do now is I guess I'll just reroute this cable in a way to see if I can get it to work properly again. And then I guess I'll just start using it all over again. I just don't like the way they have this cable set up and whatnot. Now, as you can see, I don't have the screws for it anymore because, well, again, for the longest time, the replacement cable here actually fixed everything. So I have no idea why it's working again. So I'll just reroute the cable and see what happens. Alright, I routed everything to the way I want it. Now, is this factory original? No. But let's be quite honest here. Just because it's working now doesn't mean it'll start f***ing up in a little while. Because it's more or less doing the exact same thing it was initially doing when I was initially having my issues. It will boot up completely fine, but when I go to do a print is when it just goes and shits the bed. Sometimes it'll print completely fine for a little while and then shit the bed, or just completely craps when I go to actually, when it starts to do the startup process and whatnot for getting the getting everything ready to go for the print. So first thing to do is to fire it back up and see if it still works. Alright, well, it fires up completely fine. So next step for me to do is to actually load up filament on this thing. So I'm going to do this. Remember, we're going to let it hit full temp and whatnot and see if it actually does it. Alright, well, let's see if I can get the Centauri Carbon to print properly again. So we're going to do this print right here. That's going to be about 3 hours or so. So I will, I'll just be monitoring this thing because I don't have high hopes this thing actually fully prints this off. Because again, just because it's working right now doesn't mean it won't start acting up later. More than likely what I'm going to end up doing if I manage to fully revive this thing is I'm going to continue using it especially if they send me a new one. But I'm going to be giving myself a plus model of this, slightly smaller, but more or less the same build volume. That way, so I can have, honestly, for me, a more reliable printer. Even though this thing is slow and whatnot, it's been the most reliable printer I've ever owned. I have yet to once have to deal with this thing. I did have a little bit of an issue with the belt right here where a little bit came off, but that's been like 3 years ago, or not 3 years ago, 3 months ago. And this thing's been, again, working completely fine. I am still occasionally doing this to feel the belt and whatnot to see if anything's going wrong, but the belt feels completely fine, so I'm not too concerned. And again, as much as I like the Centauri Carbon for being a Core XY machine and how fast it is, I'll gladly forego that if that means I get a stable, consistent, reliable workhorse printer, and that's what I want. Is it nice I'll be able to do multicolor on this thing at some point? Yes. Do I need it? Hell fucking no. Again, I want durability. I want something that can actually just work. And I've had to take this thing apart now twice to revive it again. And I don't know if this thing will fuck up again. It most likely will. Because again, it's working completely fine now, but only time will tell. Because who knows? I may be able to get a few good prints out of this thing before it shits to bed again. I don't know. I did a little bit of an oopsie again. I forgot to re-level the printer. So yeah, this came out atrocious. So I stopped it when I did, and now I gotta pull out the old pocket knife. So I'm gonna get all this cleaned up. I'm going to re-level the bed, and I'm gonna retry again. Alright, now to try yet again. Just as expected, it died yet again. This time giving me the exact same issue of previous that I was experiencing, which is printer didn't heat up, or hot end didn't heat up as intended. So yeah. It is very much safe to say the Centauri Carbon is fucking dead. Go figure. And as I stated before, this is the replacement parts that Elegoo sent to me. Like I said, they sent me a new PCB for the back right here, and they sent me a new hot end. That's what they wanted me to do initially, was replace those two parts and try again. And of course I mentioned that, hey, the USB-C cable is more than likely the issue, but they sent me off again the little board and the new hot end, thinking that was going to fix the issue, which obviously did not fix the issue. So yeah, at the very least it still boots up again, but of course I can't do much in the way of printing because, well, it's still effed. Alright, what I'm going to do now is that since this cable is still broken, as you can see, I'm going to now replace it with one of the other cables that I do know that works, and we're going to see what happens again. Alright, swap it out with the original anchor cable I was using when I was initially diagnosing this printer, trying to get it to work again. And of course, when I was initially diagnosing it, found out that this cable here was in fact the issue, and this one resolved it. But obviously now there is something more wrong with this printer because, well, none of my cables are working, and this one only works for a little bit. So I doubt this thing will boot up properly, but we'll just see what happens. So I'll just come back in a bit. Go figure. Now it's booting up completely fine again, like nothing happened. What the hell is with this printer? Okay then, I'm going to now put this back in its place. I'm going to reroute this cable in a way to where it's not going to be in the way of everything. I'm going to reboot the system again, and then we're going to see what happens. So, well, actually no, since this cable is working, I'm going to bring out the other cable, because if I'm going to start printing with this printer again, I want to use the other cable that can handle a little more power. Again, I'm fairly certain this cable can handle the power draw that this thing provides, but I wanted, again, a slightly higher power draw cable, just in case this thing draws a little more power than I initially thought. Alright, it's booted up again, and this time I'm using the cable that has a little more power draw to work with. And well, it's currently working just fine. So again, I'm going to move this cable out of the way. I'm going to reroute this cable again, but I'm not going to fully route it like the way I did, because I don't know if I'm going to start having issues again. So I'll come back in a bit. Alright, so here is the failure from the Centauri carbon. Here's where I'm currently at. I still got a little ways to go. But it is so far printing, which is what I want. Let's see, apparently it's got about a little over 2 hours to go. So far everything's working, and I think it'll be safe to say it's going to fully finish. And if it does fully finish, then I don't know what to do next, because it's clearly working again, and all I did was just plug this cable back in, do a small print that failed, and then when it failed, swap over to the original cable that was working, and then it starts working again, and apparently starts fully working as intended. So again, I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but I'm betting that's exactly what's going to happen. So again, if it does, then I'm going to go, what the hell do I do now? Because yes, the carbon works again, but I don't know if it'll fuck up again. If it fucks again, I'm going to be out, God only knows how much in the way of filament. Because I'm planning on doing a life-size print of Crazy Nita. And some of these print files are huge, and they're going to be upwards of a day worth of printing. And the last thing I was my Centauri carbon just to shit the bed because of some bullshit error that it thinks it's having, and just lose whatever print progress I'm doing. And on top of that, I also don't want to lose a freaking spool of filament because of the printer decides to shit the bed. Again, this thing is still working completely fine, and yet this thing is unstable. Small tangent. The trash can Mac Pro I was using, I'm going to be swapping over to this right here. Why am I doing that? Well, I had Orca-Sizer open for both this and this. It went to sleep like normal, like I said it to, but when I went to wake it up, both Orca instances I had just outright crashed. So obviously I can't have that. So I'm going to swap over to this thing right here, which was actually my father's computer up until fairly recently. And since I took it back, it's just been sitting collecting dust. So I'm going to use this for now, and it has a 1080 Ti. So for what this is going to be doing, it's complete overkill and even more powerful than the Mac Pro. So it's going to hopefully be a better option in the end. But for some annoying reason, it can't find my NVMe drive. So I'm going to deal with that off camera. And now when it comes to Centauri Carbon, it's still printing for the moment. And it looks like I actually got quite a bit farther in, so I'm guessing it's going to finish. We'll just have to wait and see. Alright, got booting. Just had to move the NVMe down a slot. I don't know why it didn't want to work in the first one, but it's a weird motherboard. Well, it's not really a weird board. It's a fairly high-end ASRock board. Or not ASRock, but ASUS board. But, it's a weird board either way, but it's working now. Alright, the Centauri Carbon is almost complete. And as you can tell, it is, well, almost complete. With that said, the trash can Mac Pro I was using, it died on me. So, hooray. Luckily, I had this desktop sitting around collecting literal dust, doing nothing. So I'm getting it set up, and hopefully it will work. God, at this point, I really just need to dedicate my main desktop to this crap instead of just trying to constantly have a computer set aside for this, because I'm having constant computer issues along with this thing being a pile of crap. Alright, the Centauri Carbon has finished. So, at the very least, for the moment, it's working. Now, how long will it continue working again? I have no fucking idea. And honestly, I'm getting a little peeved at this thing. I'm happy it's working again, but I sure as hell can't trust it. And as much as I want to trust this thing, the only way for me to trust it again is to get a whole brand new one and just chuck this one in the trash. Alright, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start the process of routing this cable the way I initially had it. But this time around, I'm just going to do tests to make sure as I'm routing everything that it still boots up and whatnot. So let's start by booting it up again and seeing if it fires up properly before I start the process of putting all the tape and whatnot to make sure everything stays where it needs to. Alright, it is booting up as intended. So far so good. So So now I'm going to start routing the cable and come back. Alright, I reset the routing back to more or less the way I initially had it. Let's see what happens again. It booted up completely fine, so I don't see why I wouldn't do it again, but you never know with this weird printer. Alright, it booted up completely fine. So why not hit this thing hard? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scrub through all my stuff, and I'm going to choose the Pain and Misery boat. 50-minute speed Benji. Printer's going to go run its fucking ass off, and let's see if it dies or not. Yeah, this is the one way to really stress test this thing. Alright, so far it's printing. Probably what I'm going to end up doing is that I'm probably going to start using this thing or treating this thing like I do with my Neptune 4 Max. What I mean by that? Well, when I'm done with my Neptune Max for the day, I turn it off. And the reason why I turn it off is because of that fan in the power supply. I turn this thing off every single time when I'm done using it just to stop that fan from spinning. So I'm going to do that for this. When I'm done using it for the day, I power it off completely. I know I really don't have to do that, but I'm thinking maybe just letting this thing sit with power for X amount of hours can maybe f something up. Because it seems like the original USB-C cable was like a soft reset to the motherboard to allow the other cables here to fully function again. Why this is, I don't fucking know. I just know now that the Centauri Carbon is working again. So I'm just going to start turning it off when I'm done with it for the day. Again, I don't really have to do that. I shouldn't have to do that. But if that's a way to get this thing to consistently start working again, then I'll freaking do it. Again, I have no proof that that'll actually resolve the issue or not. I just know now that I got one print out of it that's about 3.5 hours long. And I'm about to get a Benchy done in about 11 minutes. So with that said, I'll come back when the Benchy's done. Alright, and one simple speed Benchy done. So, looks like I'll be treating my Centauri Carbon like I do with my Neptune 4 Max for the time being until I can figure out an actual solution to this issue other than, again, replacing it with a brand new one. So I'll just have to wait for Elegoo's response, send this video off to them after they respond to me, and then we'll figure something out from there because, again, I don't know what's really wrong with this thing, but it's working again for the moment.